Hello, my name is Fabian Beck. I'm presenting this talk on behalf of my PhD students Shivam Agarwal and Shahid Latif. Due to a bit of unfortunate timing and logistics, they were not able to record the talk themselves as originally planned. But I hope they can be both present today and participate in the workshop. This project was much more their initiative and contribution than mine. This workshop is on failures. And you probably all know those that start with, "We regret to inform you." As a young PhD student, this can be a severe thing. Your day or week might be wrecked, and I hope not your PhD thesis. So we wanted to know, how do PhD students in visualization research feel about it? In particular, what are their coping strategies for paper rejections? To learn about it, we performed a study among the PhD students of the community. We asked them to fill a short online questionnaire including demographics and information about their publication history, of course with a specific focus on rejections. The main part then consisted of 4 open-ended questions that we will go through later in detail. For the analysis of the results, we used a mostly qualitative approach, in particular an open coding process to identify different coping strategies named by the participants. If you want to look at the data yourself, all materials and results are available as supplemental material published on OSF. We recruited the participants through mailing lists of the community and social media. We analyzed the data of 24 participants. They showed certain diversity as desired. The experience level spread from people in their first year up to recent PhD graduates. We reached an international audience, however, with a certain focus on Germany and the US. But most importantly, the participants had various levels of experience with paper submissions, the blue bars, and paper rejections, the red bars. Before describing the results in detail, I like to quote 2 responses that give a good impression of some general attitudes. One participant said quite positively, "My attitude is this will get in somewhere eventually. I have seen my papers improve dramatically after revising and resubmitting." Another participant expressed more negative feelings, but still with a positive touch. "It was really hard to not give up. There were many tears, but in the end you have to stand up again and improve your work." It's hard to say that these examples are representative, but our impression is that they mark a certain very common span of answers. But now let's discuss the most common coping strategies we identified. First of all, improving the work for resubmission seems to be the most common approach. We identified this strategy 32 times. Please note that multiple counts per participants are possible here because we extracted the strategies from multiple questions. Second most frequently, we found a kind of opposite strategy, downgrading the work by resubmitting to a lower ranked venue mentioned 21 times. Further coping strategies are discussing the reviews among the collaborators to better understand and derive actions, to wait some time, look at the reviews again later and get a more positive and constructive view on one's own paper, and to consider the rejections as something positive, as an opportunity to improve the work or learn something. As mentioned earlier, these main results are based on a set of 4 open-ended questions, which we can also analyze individually. First, we asked about what support collaborators provided to handle the paper rejections. The answers showed that discussing the reviews with their peers and supervisors was an important step, followed by making a plan for a resubmission. Second, going into the specifics of such resubmission plans, we observed again the 2 main strategies, downgrading and improving, here with a slightly more pronounced focus on downgrading. When choosing a venue for resubmission, mostly one with a similar scope was picked. Third, some papers get rejected multiple times. How are such rejections handled? The interesting thing here is maybe what nobody does, abandoning the work and starting a new project. Else, answers were similar to those for question 2. Fourth, immediately when receiving the notification and reading the reviews for the first time, one might have quite negative feelings and maybe also a negative impression of the review. And indeed, we found when asking how the impression of the reviews changed over time that mostly the impression of the reviews got better. Discussing the outcomes of the study on a higher level, we first need to mention some limitations. One thing is that it's unclear how well our set of participants reflects the community. At least we observe a certain sampling bias towards Europe and North America. Also, to provoke more responses when advertising the study, we implied that PhD students might have faced problems and negative feelings when receiving a reject notification. But despite this potential bias towards the negative, we observed a generally quite positive attitude. Regarding the high-level insights, we can summarize that PhD students take the reviews seriously. Following the review's advice is very common. So papers get improved and also published. No hard research work ends up unpublished. Team support seems to be an important for coping with rejected papers. And PhD students are mostly able in taking the reviews positively and learn from them. Still, we also found some indication that some reviews are written in a quite harsh tone. To conclude, the 5 most common strategies for coping with paper rejections are improving the work, downgrading it to a lower ranked venue, discussing the reviews and resubmissions plans among collaborators, letting the negative feelings pass and looking at the reviews again after some time, and staying positive, seeing the paper improve and learn. As our next steps, we plan to extend this work. We actually have more data available as more responses came in while we were about to submit the work. We also like to analyze in more detail if and how gained experience leads to altered coping strategies. Furthermore, a reviewer's or advisor's perspective would be a good complement to our result. Finally, you might ask us, so is the system healthy? And we would reply, yes, mostly. But reviewers, please consider you might talk to a first-year PhD candidate.